Hello and welcome back to In Defense of a Movie Podcast. It's time for some jury duty.
What's up, guys? Sorry we've been so, what is the word? Inconsistent in posting episodes. Have been very, very busy with some personal life stuff going on here, so I just wanted to apologize to everyone out there who's wondering where all our episodes are, or maybe think we're on another, 5-year hiatus. Just want to calm everyone's nerves out there and let you know that content is coming. It just won't be at its regular pace. And so we just want to apologize again for that.
But we're still here.
Yes, we're still here, and we're still going to bring you our fresh takes on movies. All right, Dad, should we get into it?
Yeah, just off the bat here, my name's Dan. Joining me as always, co-host Aaron. What's going on, Aaron?
Not too much.
How goes the busyness? How goes the life? How goes the stuff?
I'm doing pretty good. Watch some movies here. Form some opinions.
Yeah.
Excited to talk to you. How about yourself?
Good. I feel like we got a fair amount of stuff in front of us. We still haven't got to Gentlemen Broncos.
Nope.
But we will have that coming out fairly soon. It'll probably come out right in time with the Minecraft movie, actually, now that I think of it.
Yeah.
We were going to drop it this month, but things have just been so crazy. And so I believe we're going to record it next Wednesday, and then I'll edit it from there. So it is coming. Mainline episodes are coming out. But until then, we are going to record jury duties when we can. And yeah, give our thoughts on more recent releases and all that stuff. We got a good mix of theatrical and streaming stuff to talk about today, which is fun. Yeah, I guess we can jump right into it. The first thing I wanted to bring up right out of the gate, on I think the last Jury Duty episode, I talked about a show called Paradise, which is streaming on Hulu as an extension on Disney+. On Rotten Tomatoes, it sits at 83% on the tomato meter and 82% on the popcorn meter. So very close consensus there.
That's a great rating.
Yeah, I gushed about this show on the last episode.
Yeah.
Highly recommended it. And it is now concluded. And I gotta say, I was a little let down by the finale.
Shoot.
I thought it was a bit rushed, and the focus wasn't really where I thought it would be. And it kind of felt like more like sequel bait rather than a nice conclusion to all the different mysteries and plot threads that were pretty well weaved through the series. So I still recommend it, but yeah, I gotta say, my overall impression of it was hugely let down by the conclusion of it. And I think that's kind of symptomatic of streaming shows in general, where self-contained series just don't really happen anymore.
Yeah.
They always got to leave the door cracked open for like the next season that we wait 2 years for or whatever. So I'm a little disappointed. It felt like a bit of a rug pull, where I definitely thought it was going to be a contained show. Even when I was, Aaron, has this ever happened to you? Like, even when I was firing up the episode, I took one look at the runtime of the finale and thought, no way. There's no way this can be satisfying in that amount of time.
Was it a short one, or?
Yeah, it was one of the shorter ones of the entire series.
Oh, that always makes me mad when there's other episodes in the season that are longer than the finale. For some reason, the finale should always be the longest. And maybe
I agree.
Your first episode. I'd argue that a little.
Yeah, that's the way it always was. I remember season finales and series finales were always like either double episodes or longer episodes. Yeah. Thinking back to shows we watched growing up. And so it's another one of those weird meta qualities that we have to deal with as modern consumers, is that we know the length of the thing before we jump into it. Yeah, as soon as I saw the runtime, I was like, oh, really?
Shoot.
There's no way.
Yeah.
And sure enough, it's just too rushed.
Yeah.
Too rushed. It's a good story, but man, this would have been fine if it was just a single limited series.
I've been watching Severance, and I don't know if you've been watching it, Dan, but it's kind of the same thing there, where they're just introducing lots of like cool points and new storylines and things, and they are answering some things, but it just takes forever to get to there. And and it's just it's kind of one of those things where if you were only doing one season, you would get this jam-packed thing, but because they want to go multiple seasons, you just it gets a little diluted,
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem with streaming shows. Obviously, so many people have commented on this, but Yeah, just again, we touched on meta watching when we talked about Captain America, the last jury duty episode. And gosh, streaming series, they're just the worst for this.
Yeah.
When you go to experience a story and you see the title of the episode, you see the description of what the episode's about, you know how long it is, you see a still frame of what's happening in the episode. It's just,
you move
it's
your
a weird way to
remote
consume
over
a story.
top of it, and it like plays a couple seconds of it, or it plays like a couple minutes of it, one or the other, it seems to be.
Yeah, it's a weird way to experience a story, and I don't think it's doing any favors to the material at all.
No, you know what, Dan, this has actually been a weird thing that has been on my mind for a really long time. And for some reason, I think there needs to be almost a reset in the and sorry, I don't mean like a great reset. I'm not talking conspiracy theories or anything like that. I just think that
a Project 2025
well, just the
streaming initiative.
The movie industry has become, I don't know how to put it, just a victim of itself.
Yes.
Of them always prioritizing profits, prioritizing, that's the thing is I can't remember where I heard this, but it was basically like, are you making a movie for the creative process, or are you making movies to make money? And the sad truth is they're making movies for money and not to being creative, not for like good content. So I don't know. I just think that all of us as consumers, we got to consume less, I guess.
Yeah.
Because there's such a big push for putting out content that you're not always going to get quality content here. So maybe, I don't know, but
yeah,
I mean, I can't fix Hollywood by myself.
Well, two things I would like to strongly discourage is, one, make your season finale the longest episode in the series. I don't care what it takes. It should be the longest episode. Even just the optics of that is more satisfying to the consumer.
Everything should come together in the last episode.
Yeah.
Please do not introduce new concepts in the very last episode either.
Oh, this is another thing. Yeah, just to gripe on this. This jumped out at me too, especially when watching Paradise. Do not start your season finale episodes with flashbacks to retcon new information into the narrative. Don't do it. I'm begging you, stop doing it. I have seen it in so many different shows where all of a sudden, you know, the viewer, we've been led by the nose down this path of this narrative. And then in the final episode, there's like, oh, now a flashback to see why everything came together the way it did. No, stop it.
I feel like this episode is going to go a little salty today.
I'm a big fan of linear storytelling. I'm not a huge fan of flashbacks. I think of shows, and this is a funny example. I think of shows like Righteous Gemstones, where, and I bring it up because its newest and last season is premiering right now, which I haven't checked out. But you and I have both watched all the other seasons. And one thing that they do is once per season, they have an entire flashback episode where they cram all of that in, and it's formulaic in the sense that each season you get the flashback episode that validates the story of the season at large. And it's very smart because they've trained the audience and fans of the show to know that it's coming, so we know that the narrative is going to keep cooking along so long as we have that one backstory episode, you know, where everyone's teenagers or whatever. But I have such a bone to pick with shows that all of a sudden grind to a halt so they can do some big flashback when it's supposed to be the climax of the story. It doesn't follow 3-act structure. Like, it doesn't follow contemporary storytelling at all.
Well, I almost argue there's also just the weird structure of TV shows now, right? Because it's no longer following that. It's more along the lines of, what do they call it? Easy viewing, something that you can like watch and follow while also like being on social media on your phone. So with that being said, that's why you probably get like this jam packed in the last like 10 minutes of the episode or whatever, of any episode, because it's like, oh, people tune in for that.
Yeah.
It's a weird time.
A season finale can really make or break a show.
Yeah. Think of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, exactly, right?
The season finale destroyed that entire season, like series. Sorry.
Yeah, it destroyed an entire fan base.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll come off my soapbox, Aaron. Is there anything that you've watched lately that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, I watched the movie The Gorge. I gorged myself on the gorge. You like that?
Gorgeous.
I have new orders that require me to go dark for at least a year, maybe more. A special assignment in an undisclosed location.
As an elite sniper, are you presently under any private or military contract?
No, there's not a lot of reasons for me right now.
What if I gave you a reason?
There she is. West Tower Observation Post. Your home for the next 365 days. There is no outside communication here.
What's that on the other side?
That is East Tower. Contact with the other side is strictly forbidden.
So what's the mission? To keep people from going in the gorge?
No. You need to stop what's in the gorge from coming out.
What a strange name for a movie.
It was, well, I'll tell you why it was called The Gorge, because there was a giant gorge in there in the movie. Overall,
I'm not sure how that title's supposed to make me feel, like tonally speaking.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
What is the tone of the movie? Is it like a horror movie or what is it?
I would have accepted Crevasse. I would have liked that a lot more. You know what? This movie is super, super weird. It's super hard to guess what the tone of this movie is. And to be honest, I didn't exactly know what the tone of this movie. I thought it was almost along the lines of like a cat and mouse murder in the woods kind of movie. Not at all what it is. They are basically protecting. I won't get too much into it because I don't want to give any spoilers away. But basically, there is this gorge. There is a tower on one side and a tower on the other side. One is controlled by like American people and the other is controlled by Russian people. And once a year, they send a person out there who just basically lives in that tower and patrols the gorge to stop these creatures from coming out.
Cool.
So that's like the premise of the story, but this particular movie, there was a little bit of a romance story between Miles Teller's character and Anya Taylor-Joy. They're two characters, which was just kind of, I don't know, didn't seem necessary. It kind of cringy almost, I want to say.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was a little bit of that, like, because I don't know, there's this whole scene where, you know, they can't really communicate to each other, and so they're just holding up signs and like writing on these signs and communicating back and forth, and like, I don't know, they kind of like fall in love that way. That's what I mean. It like reminds me of a Taylor Swift music video where she like writes on the poster about in the, you know what I mean? And so I don't know. It was kind of like, it's kind of lame in that sense, I guess. I don't know. Maybe just wasn't my cup of tea. Maybe someone else out there liked it.
Yeah.
But you know, if you kind of would have got rid of that and kind of maybe focused a little bit more on the lore because of how the creatures got there, you know, what caused them, what the secret society is that's like tasked to protect this gorge, was all way more interesting than this love story. And like, obviously it was the thing they focused on the least, right? And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like an easy, I would say maybe an easy payday for the actors. And, you know, and it was just a movie kind of cashing in on big names more than it was like a hard hitting, riveting story. But now get off my soapbox, but overall,
that's a weird one.
Yeah, overall, I would say it was a pretty good movie, and like I said, had a very, very cool lore. And you know, maybe I would like to see if Apple maybe did like a series or something, because I would like to say Apple has been putting some like quality shows out.
Yeah.
Surprisingly so. And I just been really enjoying their content. So I was excited to watch this movie here, but it fell a little flat for me, but still worth a watch, I'd say.
I've been wondering about this one for a while. I thought about going out of my way to watch it because the trailer looked pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And they're both great actors. And just the concept seemed a little bit interesting to me, but tonally, I was struggling with it. I was like, I don't know. It seems a little bit like a movie with a personality disorder. Like, I didn't know what it wanted to be.
Yeah. No, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah, it's definitely like that. Like, am I a love story? Am I a sci-fi movie? Am I, like, what am I? Yeah.
Unless this is a spoiler, but, like, do you see the creature ultimately, or creatures?
Yeah, so this is, I will say this without giving any spoilers, you do figure out, like, what is the cause of everything. And I don't know how to explain it, but the way that they revealed in what has happened to everyone was, I don't know how to explain it. It was like building up to it, and then they told everyone, and it was just kind of also fell flat. And so it was kind of one of those movies where I think it might have benefited more from them not finding out until like the very end. But there is also kind of a cool way that they end this movie, because they kind of end it in like a very heroic way, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
That is along the lines of taking down capitalism. And I will leave it at that. Yeah. I'm just trying not to do any spoilers, but that's where I'll leave it at.
When I first saw the trailer, the first thing that came to mind, believe it or not, was Hideo Kojima, like his Death Stranding game, where I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe it's going to get super paranormal and bizarre like that game, you know?
Yeah.
That would have been interesting if there was a lot more to it and a lot more artistic direction. But
yeah, and that's what I mean is if it would have went that way, it would have been like 1,000 times better. But like I said, it was kind of more focused on the actors and the story around them than it was the actual lore of why they were there.
That's too bad. I think would you recommend it? Should I check it out still?
I would say it's still worth watch. It like I said, it's still got like a cool concept and stuff. Just know that it's not going to be anything crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, definitely worth a watch.
Great. Awesome. The Gorge. Can you say The Gorge in like a trailer voice? How cool can you make The Gorge sound?
Gorge. George of the
George.
He's back with his banana and his gorilla.
It's a weird word. The crevasse.
Yeah. Crevasse.
The gap.
Crevice.
The Gorge.
Well, next up, Aaron, this is a movie that we both saw in the theaters. The latest film from Parasite director Bong Joon-ho, Mickey 17.
Yeah.
On Earth, nothing was working out, and I wanted to get the hell out of there.
You're applying to be an expendable? You read through the paperwork.
Yeah. I should have read through it. They made me work my ass off, giving me one shit mission after another.
You're an expendable! You're here to be expended!
Every time I died, they just printed me out again.
I never been to Earth, Dad. I never even slept over some other dude's house.
Nikki, the worst thing that could happen on Earth is you get killed. In which case, boom, you end up back here.
The ship was filled with mostly dickheads. But Nasha, she's always loved me.
I have an apartment. I'm not sure where. My dog knows, though.
You have a dog? What kind?
I don't know. I'd ask him, but he's uptown meeting his contacts.
Multiple.
I got hit by this big light that was attached to a lot of metal.
That's a train, son. Don't stand in front of them.
Well, I'll have to take a mulligan on this one.
Please, Nikki, get back up there.
It's not your fault. Look too bad.
We both saw this. I think just a couple weeks ago. We saw it around the same time, and I wanted to know your thoughts on this, Aaron. I'll let you go first, and then I'll share my thoughts on it.
Yeah, no. Overall, I thought it was a solid movie. I mean, it wasn't quite close to Parasite level, but it was still a solid movie. Robert Pattinson did such a good job of playing the different Mickeys. Yeah, I don't know. This movie had a lot of heart and just like a lot of, I don't know, quirky moments, if you want to call them. Kind of also reminded me of his other movie, Oakjaw. I don't know if you've seen that, Dan.
No, I haven't seen that one.
Okay, it kind of has a similar vibe to that. But overall, I thought it was pretty good. What did you think?
I struggled with this one. You know, I felt a bit bamboozled by this movie because the trailer made it seem like it was a different movie than it was. Being unfamiliar with the source material, I kind of went into it thinking it was going to be a quirky sci-fi movie about Robert Pattinson's character, essentially trying to navigate this new planet for mankind, you know, and dying over and over again in funny and creative ways. But that's not really, I mean, that's an oversimplification. That's not really what it's about. And what I got instead was 2 hours of Mark Ruffalo pretending to be Donald Trump, and I wanted to claw my eyes out about halfway through. You know, this movie finished wrapping like a long time ago. As I understand it, I think it was even in like 2023 is when it wrapped, or even it just got delayed. And I gotta say, Aaron, this is without an ounce of politics attached to it. I'm just so tired of Trump parallels in movies and TV shows. It's just so frustrating to me. It's just not that intelligent to me. And it's like, yeah, I get it. You know, people feel the way they feel about Trump, but like to have someone just leaning so hard into that character and, you know, people wearing the hats and like the whole thing, it just really took me out of it. And it just felt like an SNL skit at times. Like Robert Pattinson was doing some incredible acting. It was really quirky, but like also, you know, dialed right in, and I enjoyed it in a way, but like, yeah, just the mockery and the political stance of it was just so exhausting to me. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from with that, and I would agree with you that it is kind of one of those things that has been, you know, beat to the ground here. But I don't know, for myself, number one, again, didn't watch any trailers.
Yeah.
I knew the kind of premise that he was like some sort of expendable, so I knew he was like dying, and then Mickey's 17. I can put two together.
Yeah, but, not your first sci-fi.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, overall, the comparison to Trump didn't bother me too much, just because I got, you know, the sense of that it was like obviously just some sort of cult, right? Like whatever. I guess I could say that. Like I don't know. I don't want to give away spoilers, but
it's fine.
Yeah, so because he was kind of like almost a cult leader, I think that it did good enough of a job to distract me from the fact that they were just, you know, trying to make a satire of Trump here, which I did enjoy, especially coming from, you know, a religious background where anytime I come across cult type of stuff, I kind of find it funny to see people in that, and also how brainwashed they are. And that's what I really appreciated about the Mickeys and what was his girlfriend's name, Nasha, you know, where they were just kind of like the regular people trying to escape the planet and mixed in with these just like absolute weirdos. So it didn't take me out of it enough for me to not enjoy it. Like I said, for me, just watching Robert Pattinson kind of go over the topic of like dying over and over again. Not only that, but like, what would you say, classism?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. And obviously that's kind of on brand for Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah.
You know, for all his films there.
Yeah, classism is definitely his jam.
Yeah, exactly. And so I did enjoy watching that and stuff. But yeah, no, I would say I wasn't too put off by that. But it's wild though, because I believe that this movie had a 3-week run in the theater and is already going to be coming to streaming.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
It is a big flop, as I understand it, which is interesting. I hadn't read any of the commentary on it before going to see it, so I wasn't preloaded to expect it to be another, like, crapping on Trump kind of scenario. But it reminded me of after COVID when shows and movies started getting made again, how COVID became like a plot point in movies and shows.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people made movies about COVID, or even like Brooklyn Nine-Nine's last season talked about COVID, stuff like that, where it just people were already fatigued of the banter and the parody and everything else of it, but they couldn't really help themselves, and they just kind of inserted it into everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get political, but I do imagine that when this movie was made, the outcome of the American election was still very much in question, right? So watching this movie that's about this politician who's like, you know what, I lost the election, so I'm taking my cultists and I'm leaving Earth to go establish this new white supremacy colony is kind of the vibe you're getting from the movie. That's not really the narrative that happened in real life. That's not what we're living in. And so you have this like weird, almost like fanfic version of reality rolled into this narrative that should be about Mickey Barnes, but is too distracting because of, what does it look like when this failed cult leader, falls flat on his face, but still has all his money and ambition? Like, where does he go from there? And I just found it a bit, I don't know how to explain it, just exhausting, like just too over the top for what it was. And I think I wanted more Mickey. I wanted more of it sounds morbid, but I wanted to experience more of the hijinks of his like deaths in exploring this planet. Like that's where I thought the movie was going to spend most of its time, but that's definitely not the case. I don't think
more of those creepers. That's what I wanted. I was like, I need to know more about them.
Yeah, they were fantastic. I thought they were so interesting.
I actually really liked at the end when they're yelling at him and they're like, "You're the alien race."
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah.
Like I said, I guess everybody feels a little bit different, but for me, it was pretty good.
I did like Toni Collette's sauce fixation. That was pretty funny.
Oh yeah, it was pretty funny. I was like, what are her sauces made from? Can't be good for you.
Yeah. Looking for the perfect sauce. It's like, sure, why not?
I mean, aren't we all looking for the perfect sauce?
Yeah.
In some way or another.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I still recommend it just because of how interesting it is, but I do feel like it's very heavy-handed on the political front, and I personally found it exhausting, but I know not everyone will find it exhausting, so that's totally fine.
The other thing that I will say about this movie, apart from, slandering, just making a satire of Trump, which everyone is doing these days. Other than that, I found that the story of this movie was quite original, and that is also something that I'd like to point out with this movie here, is because in this day and age where everything is either a remake or some, re-garbled garbage put out for us, this I found to be more on the original side, and that's definitely another reason why I would recommend this movie.
Well, we'll see what's next for Bong Joon-ho, because I don't think that the studio is very pleased with this unfortunate flop of this movie. I think it was maybe a word of mouth about how divisive it is probably got out, and it polarized a lot of people. So I think this movie will have a second life on streaming. I think more people will give it a chance. But yeah, it's definitely no Parasite, that's for sure.
Yeah.
We're in a state of war, and our survival is in the balance.
I got a job to do.
You can do it!
Well, Aaron?
On to the next one.
On to the next one. Well, one thing I wanted to mention, Aaron, it seems like every time we go to record a new Jury Duty episode, there's some new Disney news that's like, I want to be very clear, this is not a podcast about bashing Disney, but it just seems like you were saying to me earlier, they just keep doing controversial stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Dan? When you are the biggest movie studio in the world, like you're going to be in the magnifying glass, like everyone is going to be watching what you're doing. And, how much content is Disney putting out? And not only that, acquiring, they're an entertainment machine.
Yes.
So it's kind of hard not to talk about them because they I want to say almost have the monopoly on things, but they're not quite that big. But it sometimes feels like that.
It really does, yeah. And I feel like public perception of the company as a whole is very low right now, actually, and right across the board, from diehard loyalists to just people that would have given them a chance. And I think it's evidenced by what's happening with the Snow White movie.
Yep.
I was looking out of morbid curiosity. I was checking ticket sales at my local theater here. And at the time of recording this is Wednesday. Yesterday, I was checking ticket sales. And across all times and across all formats, yesterday, 2 days before this huge Snow White movie is supposed to come out, there was about a dozen tickets sold for Thursday opening day. And I just found that to be shocking, absolutely shocking. And not even in a mean way, just literally I just was like, what is happening with this movie? And I would be remiss to not mention it just because it's such a huge story because, you know, this movie is going to take up half the theater for a weekend. For the life of me, I do not understand what Disney was doing with this. And one thing I wanted to mention, do you remember, I think it was like a year ago, there was this photo that came out that was essentially a picture of what everyone assumed to be like the new Seven Dwarves, but they weren't dwarves. They were just like kind of this weird band of misfits.
Oh yeah, okay, and they didn't look anything like dwarves, right?
Right. So when the reshoots got announced and the movie got pushed back like a year and a half or whatever it was, everyone assumed that those characters were going to be supplanted by CGI dwarves. But I just watched a review on this movie today, and it was Jeremy John's our review. He has seen the movie, and he actually mentioned that, yes, the Seven Dwarves are in the movie, but those other characters are also in the movie, and they play an entirely different group of characters. So the assumption is that the dwarves weren't in the movie to begin with.
Yeah.
But because of the public backlash, all the reshoots they did were to pull the dwarves into the story, and it's kind of like two movies in one now.
I hate that Disney can't just be like, all right, we fucked up. Like, we gotta fix this, you know? Remember the old Sonic thing where the makers were like, okay, yeah, we hear your criticisms, like, let us fix it. And those movies came out and they've been solid one after another. Disney will just cover up their mistakes. They'll put out crappy content.
Yeah.
They'll shine it up to make and give us some fan service, you know, put in the actors we like, put in the storylines we like. But overall, they give us nothing.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with Snow White, you know, and rather than just saying things like, hey, yeah, maybe that wasn't a good idea. We're going to do this and we're going to re-edit this and make it right. They instead just make a mess of everything. I also heard there was a lot of controversy around, what's her name? Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot.
Oh, yeah.
I guess because one is Israeli and one is Palestinian. So that also did not help this movie here. No.
Rachel Zegler has said a lot of polarizing things about this movie and the original movie, and it's been well documented elsewhere. But yeah, it did the movie no favors, and the UK premiere was apparently canceled, and the review embargo just lifted today, and I think it's sitting at like 43 or 45% at the time of recording this. So it's a fiasco, and I just it's hard to feel sorry for Disney at this point, because this one, Snow White, is the story that started it all, and I don't get it, but anyway, this is, like I said, it's hard to not talk about this stuff because it's such big news in the entertainment industry. One thing I wanted to mention too, which I thought was super interesting, a few, maybe like 2 or 3 Jury Duty episodes ago, I went on this big rant about how Disney doesn't properly value their IPs, and I mentioned this Tiana series. And in that episode, I said it had been announced like 3 years ago, but actually, it had been announced like 4 years ago. And it was in full swing production. And Disney just announced like 2 days ago, as of this recording, that they have completely canceled the Tiana Disney Plus streaming show. Even the actress that plays Tiana, Anika Noni Rose, wrote a statement on X just saying how heartbroken she was and how so much work had gone into it in animation, and it was beautiful, and she recorded stuff for it already. They wrote songs, the whole thing, and Disney just canned the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments, you know, like obviously we're a small podcast, but that's exactly what we've been talking about. The iron has never been more hot to drop a new Tiana piece of content with the new rides and everything else. It's fresh on people's minds, but they were just going to dump a new series on Disney Plus and call it a day. And not only did they can it, but they announced that Walt Disney Animation will no longer be making any animated series for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
So someone at the top got the message finally that, look, if you're going to do this stuff, you have to put it in the theaters. And I don't know if it was the success of Moana 2 that did it, or our humble little podcast, but the message has been finally received, Aaron. So,
Dan, there is one constant in all of this, and that is our podcast and what we say and how it eventually comes to light here. So, it was us, is what I'm trying to say.
For our like 50 silent fans that listen to this podcast, one day they're going to look back on these episodes and be like, they were right.
I was thinking about this actually, because you know how they always say The Simpsons like predicts the future. And I was like, I don't think it's that we are predicting the future, and I don't think it's that The Simpsons is predicting the future. I think it's just people who are kind of watching what's going on in the world today, and they're kind of just making their best guesses on that. And the world is just so crazy that like it feels like 9 out of 10 times you get your prediction right. And I think that's like I think we're just predicting things just because we're that aware of what's going on. But
the safest bet right now all across the board is what's the craziest, wackiest, probably stupidest thing that can happen, and that's probably what's going to happen. And I said it in that jury duty, and I'm going to say it again because I just can't shake the feeling that we're on the money here. It's just like Disney, you cannot raise the value of your intellectual properties and the value of Disney Plus as a streaming service at the same time. It just doesn't work. Now, because of it, this project is going to be canned. And this concept is, you could echo this right across the board, because I was thinking about, have you been following at all what's been happening with the Looney Tunes movies, like the Acme? Like
no. I just literally seen the other day that there was a Looney Tunes movie coming out, and I was so confused.
Yeah, it's like out right now to little fanfare, not even under like a big name distributor. And it's the same thing. It's the studio trying to raise the value of an intellectual property, but at the same time trying to bolster the value of their streaming service.
Yeah.
And neither of them is getting the proper attention. So the whole thing just, what is that saying? Like burp, farts, and stops. It just doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You're either a streaming service or you're a movie studio focused on the theater.
Well, that's the problem right now, because streaming is just so huge. Streaming disrupted everything, right? And so, like I said, I think we're in it. Like movie studios are starting to catch on that the model that they've been following isn't necessarily working, and there's just way too much money being lost for these studios, right?
Yeah.
So, as they lose money, they start to think like, okay, like we got to actually invest our time and make a quality product rather than just pump out content. And that is something that we have been saying for, I think, the entire time that we have been recording this podcast, is stop pumping out things just for content. Make quality content. Your quality content will speak for itself, will bring more viewers in, and it'll be like a trickle-down effect. But instead, you just keep going this route of doing whatever's fast and easiest. And when you do fast and easiest, you flood the market, case in point, superhero movies. You overwhelm people, and then they're not into it. And then your big cash cow is gone. Yeah. And you got to find a new one. Yeah. Where you could just have a steady income, a steady fan base, not make people upset, not be controversial, just by taking your time and making sure you're making quality content.
Yeah, exactly. We've been talking about that since 2019.
Yeah. One thing I would say, though, is I would like to encourage people to actually stop binging TV. It is something that I have been working on myself because, I have been known to binge watch, a TV show or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. But I realized... yeah, exactly. I've realized, though, that binging is part of the problem for so many reasons. Number one is you're watching a show and you just don't get, it all just kind of blends into one show for you, right?
Yeah.
Second is it puts pressure on studios because they see people, a whole entire season comes out. You watch it in one entire day. And then, the studio feels pressured to make more content so that you can consume it more.
Yeah.
Third thing is, for me, and I don't know if anyone else feels this, but I think waiting for a show is a good thing. I think when you get time to sit down, think about what you just watched, process it. And also it builds this sort of excitement. Think of playing hard to get or teasing someone, right? And it's almost like that. When you got to wait a week to watch another show, you get excited. It builds anticipation.
Yeah.
It adds to the whole entire flavor of watching the show. So, and also I think in the long run, if we stop binge watching TV, I think it will also send a signal to these big head studio executives that okay, we can go back to normal or what normal was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing adds more value to an intellectual property like scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
When you flood the zone, people just stop caring.
Mm-hmm.
They just get burnt out.
Yeah,
and
totally.
We're watching that happen to Star Wars, and we're watching that happen to Marvel. So many things. It's just scarcity is a crucial component to value. It's like that with everything. It's like that with precious minerals, the stock market. Name a thing. That's what gives things value is scarcity or rarity.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say is Marvel, when you originally had Marvel, Disney, I hope you're listening. When you originally had Marvel, okay, you had lightning in a bottle. Yeah. And you didn't know what you had, but you worked at it and you made a compelling story with multiple pieces and were able to connect them over time. And now what you're trying to do is catch lightning in a bottle again, and you're not gonna do it. You just need to forge a new path with your superheroes. I do not know what that looks like, but stop rehashing things you've done already.
Yeah.
Figure a new way forward.
Yeah. I'll remind people that there was a 2-year break between The Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2, 2008 to 2010. Yeah. This stuff used to take time. It used to take time. You used to have to wait and build hype.
Yeah.
And that was the MCU at the time.
And Endgame was how many years in the making?
Yeah. 10.
Right? And you just can't rush that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to mention Daredevil Born Again and talk a bit about that, but we are running a bit, pretty much bang on time here. So I think I'll save that for next episode, and more episodes will have dropped by then. But Aaron, there was one more thing I wanted to mention, but before I do that, did you have any other films or shows you wanted to talk about?
No, I do not have any other movies to talk about. Okay.
Well, before we go, I wanted to throw a classic pick at you guys.
Okay.
Since the last time we recorded, some very sad news happened. Michelle Trachtenberg passed away. And I was actually really sad about this. And I didn't realize she was the same age as me. And that kind of hit hard and made it feel really weird. And the other night, Bree and I watched a movie called Ice Princess, which stars Michelle Trachtenberg. And it's a figure skating movie. It's on Disney Plus, and it's very much like a cute, teeny bopper style film. But, Joan Cusack's in it, Kim Cattrall's in it, and it's just a really lighthearted movie. And Michelle Trachtenberg is great in it. She's charming, and she does a wonderful performance. And it was just really sad to know that she passed away so young and after doing so many iconic, roles. And
yeah.
So I wanted to leave you guys with that. It's a great movie to remember her by. Just, seeing her skate around and be graceful and do a great performance. It just really hit home and was like, man, that sucks. You know.
or go watch Eurotrip.
Yeah, that's at the other end of the spectrum.
Eurotrip, and start singing "Scotty Doesn't Know."
Yeah,
what
Scotty
is that
doesn't
meme
know.
that's going wrong? That Jen or like people don't know about Scotty Doesn't Know.
Yeah,
or something like that. Anyways,
I don't know why that hit so hard for me. You know, a lot of celebrities passed away. Like Gene Hackman passed away, and his wife passed away, and I was like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah, but she was young.
She was young. She was our age, and that, you know, it's somebody we grew up watching in all these different roles. You know, from the Disney stuff to the like boner comedy stuff to Buffy, all this different stuff, right?
Buffy,
to lose her at such a young age is just so crummy. And so just leave you with a couple picks just to, you know, pay your respects and remember some of the awesome stuff she did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Aaron.
Well done.
I think that's all I have for my notes. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Okay. Well, Gentlemen Broncos is coming, I promise. But until then, feel free to check out our social media links in the show notes. Give us a follow. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. We even have a Discord that I have to get going, actually, but we've had it forever. Haven't done much with it yet. But we are in the fairly near future going to be moving towards producing some video stuff, which is exciting for us. But we'll announce more about that when we get closer to, you know, ironing out our systems and stuff like that. But until then, we hope you enjoyed the episode, and we will see you on the next episode of In Defense of a Movie Podcast.
Bye.